So, I know a few people in the room, so hi. For those that I don't know, I'm going to canter through this. I've never done it in 20 minutes ever, so I think there's a very, very small chance to be able to do it in 20 minutes here, but I'll do my best shot. This presentation will be available on our website tomorrow if you want it, and I'm sure the shares guys will send it through to you too. So, accesso, who are we? Well, we used to be called LoQ. You might remember that from back in the day. We changed the name 2 or 3 years ago because it was, well, why the heck would you have low in the name of your business for a start? We're now called accesso. It was the name of an acquisition we made and we absorbed their name. And what do? We provide technology to the leisure and attractions market around the world, 23 countries currently, to help them sell more stuff. Ideally, by making sure that the visitors to their attractions have a better time. That's the kind of sweet spot we like to aim for. And we do that, we give our stuff away. Broadly. We don't charge for what we do, by and large, but we take a percentage of the transaction of whatever revenue we've created from our customer. We take something back in the form of a profit or a revenue share or some kind of per item fee, something linked to the value that we add to the venue that we're working with. A lot of that's in the cloud. So we're not an old-fashioned software company desperately trying to turn itself into a modern transactional business. 90% of our business today is transactional with our clients, and growing pretty swiftly. And I'll come back to for those of you that keep an eye on our results, I'll come back to kind of some headlines about that in a minute. But some kind of high-level stats just to set the scene. We have just under 300 people now. We have a large part-time workforce that help us deliver some of our solutions in typically North American theme parks during the summer. We've got a bunch of offices now, mostly in the USA. And I would say that some 94.5% of our revenue is North American. We're an American company. An accident of birth has us listed here, but we are a North American company right now in terms of the generality of our business. Saying that, we're working all over Latin America now, which is really exciting. There's good growth there, and Asia is coming pretty fast. List of stuff that you might want to know. So our clients are places where you might hang out with your pals at the weekend. All right, so that could be a museum, it could be a theme park, could be a water park, could be a big gallery, could be the Empire State Building. It's a place that you might go with a group of your pals at the weekend. Those are our clients. And and there's a lot of them, happily. And quite a lot of our ideas are protected by a pretty strong suite of patents, particularly the ideas that we have and the businesses we have around the idea of virtual queuing. And I'll come on to what that means in a minute. So, ignore this bit for now. Think about the top bit. Think about when you go to a place where you might hang out with your pals at the weekend, and think about the things that you do as you're thinking about going, when you get there, and then perhaps when you've left. And think about how technology might support that experience for you. So you are going to the zoo at the weekend with the kids, and you want to find out when the zoo opens, you want to find out how much it costs, you want to find out a little bit about if there's any special exhibitions on, you want to find out about the environment, you want to know where it is, where you can park, all of that stuff. You want to buy a ticket probably, and if you don't want to buy a ticket, you can be damn sure the zoo want to sell you one, because if it's pouring with rain on Saturday morning when you open the curtains, if you haven't bought a ticket, you're not going to show up. So they're very inclined to sell you something before you get there. Once you got there, you don't want to be standing in a line at a window to get into the place. They want you to march straight on in, scan your phone onto some kind of turnstile, and in you go. And then they want to make it really easy for you to enjoy their experience, whatever that is, whether it's going up in a lift to see the view from the top of the Seattle Space Needle, or whether it's plunging down a ride on a water park. They want you to engage with that as easily as you possibly can. They want you to spend a load of money, clearly. And then when you've gone, they want you to share the experience with your pals. They want you to say how brilliant it was, and they want you to come back. So as technology supports that journey, we think about, well, what can we do to help operators engage crisply with their audience? What can we do? So we started with the business LoQ, or I was hired to come in and run a business called LoQ. LoQ listed here in 2000, 2001, something like that, OffX first of all, then on to AIM. And basically it bobbled around doing not terribly much for about 10 years. An activist investor got involved with it. I say activist investor, good as, and basically kicked the guy who set it up, a guy called Leonard Sim, in the shins and said, this could be doing a bit better than it is. We think you need to shake up how you take it to market. And anyway, I was the result of that. I was running Serco's defense business previously, so I went from 20,000 staff working for me to 24 or 25, something like that. I was looking for a career change, and by God, I got it. And this is the best job I've ever had, by a country mile. And the reason is because the opportunity I think we have here to create a global business serving our markets, doing lots of stuff, is enormous. So low-queue business, we started by shaking it all up and moving the business forward as quickly as I could operationally. We changed all the advisors, the brokers, the board, the exec, we changed everything. And at that point, we had one client and about 17 venues that we served. And what we did is we basically let people spend money not to stand in queue lines. So effectively, you could rent a little doohickey from us, which allowed you to look at a list of rides in the theme park, go click, I don't want to stand in a physical queue to go on Superman. It's an hour-long wait. I'm going to give you $30. I'm going to press this button on this little machine, and I'm going to go and have a cup of coffee while I'm standing in the queue. You know, it's a really neat idea. And that is the general premise. That idea of using mobile devices to make reservations is at the heart of our kind of patent landscape and patent family. So that's our queuing business. When we started, as I said, we had about 16 or 17 installations. I think we're about 50 now, something like that. Our model is very definitely to revenue share with our clients on this, and we can charge, it turns out, astonishingly, maybe $120, $130 per person per day for this facility if you let people kind of jump the queue rather than wait the comparator what the physical queue line might be. So we can monetize things very swiftly. Also, interestingly, what's happened is, of course, is that over the last few years, people have smartphones in their pocket. So we have a different way of delivering this service to guests. We don't have to rent them a little doohickey anymore. They can use their smartphone. I'm just going to get my water, forgive me. I think that's my one. If it's not, my apologies. So that's our queuing business. We got a bit of momentum into that, and I was then very struck. I visited a big trade show that our industry has in Orlando, and it was extraordinary. So 1,300 exhibitors in a huge hall in Orlando. Basically, at the end of each operating season for theme parks, everybody goes to Orlando and gets drunk for a week. That's pretty much the annual routine. And they check out what's going on in the theme park world. Anyway, we went into this enormous hall, and we were probably the biggest technology vendor in the hall. And I thought, hang on, that's a bit odd, because we're only like a 12 million market cap business. What the heck's going on? And it turns out that the theme park market has changed fairly dramatically in the last few years. A bunch of big groups have emerged. Merlin is a great British example of that, number 2 now in the world in terms of scale. And they've all been built, buy and build, PE plays, by and large, that have come onto the public market. The supply chain hadn't kept up. So I thought, hang on a minute, maybe there's a gap we can fill. Maybe we can be the vendor that sells more than just a bit of a queuing product. So I went and spoke to the blokes that run the big organizations, and they said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So I bought a ticketing business, because the only thing you really need is a ticket. Everything else is optional. You really do have to have a ticket, though. Cheerfully, I got really lucky, and I bought a brilliant, brilliant company, it turns out. It's called Accesso. We now call ourselves Accesso. They were Florida-based, set up by a bunch of ex-Disney guys. The guy that was running revenue and ticketing for Disney was the chief exec. He's now our COO. And basically, that's a cloud-based ticketing platform which sells tickets as a white label provider, if you know that expression. So broadly, if you go on to any number of venues, any Six Flags theme park in North America, any Cedar Fair, a bunch of Merlin parks now over here, actually, we're the guys selling the tickets. It's not them, it's us. So you think you're buying from Six Flags, and basically you are, but actually we're powering the technology, and we're looking after that whole ecosystem. And that product last year sold about 30 million tickets, and we get paid a little slice every time we sell a ticket. Growing at 30%, 32, 33% last year, that business. And I thought, hurrah, this is easy. I'll buy another one. And about a year, that was December 2012, and I started in October 10. Then we bought a business called Seriousware. Seriousware started in the ski industry in North America, and we're the biggest supplier now, global supplier to the global ski industry of software. And they have software that runs ski resorts, broadly. And in America, ski resorts are different from European. In America, a bloke buys mountain, builds ski resort. And all the commercial assets are linked. So he owns all the food and beverage, the bars, the ski hire, the lift park. He owns the whole shooting match. So you need an ERP kind of POS system that all of those things can talk together. Seriousware does that. And broadly, if you've got a front gate and you want to sell some tickets, and you've got a restaurant where you want to flog a bowl of soup for lunch, and a shop where you want to sell something, well, every museum in the world's got that same challenge. Pretty much every water park and theme park's got it too. So we've taken their point of sale system and we've brought it into the attractions world. And actually, we're now really getting quite big in the cultural sector in North America, bizarrely. And then at the end of last year, I bought another one called Showware. And Showware is another cloud-based ticketing business. They make their money every time they sell a ticket. Last year, they sold 20 million tickets, something like that. And They serve, what's the best way to describe it? Passport, the first ticketing business I bought, is a general admission ticketing product. By that, I mean they sell you a ticket, you turn up, you scan, you go through the turnstile, and you go and play. You do what you want. Whereas a assigned seat ticketing product, which is what Showware is, they're taking you to a seat. So you're going to a theatre performance or a concert or a sports event, and they're taking you to section whatever it is, row seat. You're there. And they do that for about 500 venues across North America. Fantastic little business. I can't tell you how pleased we are with how that's worked out. All of these businesses are now kind of integrated to the extent that they can be technically, or at least these three are, and we're working on the technical integration of this one. And we're now the third biggest ticketing vendor in the world. Holy cow, how did that happen? It kind of snuck up quite quickly. And we're selling between our cloud systems and Passport and Showware and our box office systems and Seriousware, we're selling over 100 million tickets a year now, which puts us behind Ticketmaster and a German lot called CTS Eventim. But we're a big fish all of a sudden. And the great news is we've got a broader, we think, product set than anyone else. And we get to see pretty much every RFP in the world now comes to us. They phone us up, somebody does, because they've heard of us or one of our brands. And we can filter that through, and we're pushing them into cloud-based transactional revenue contracts. Anywhere 3 to 10 years, or maybe 7 years. So long-term, repeatable contracts, which is a lovely thing. You've probably read the rest of that while I was walking about. We also bought a payment gateway, just as a little happy aside. When we bought Accesso, they happened to have one, and that's churning $1.5 billion this year in terms of us passing money off to our customers. It's a real value add for us because we can set up direct debit programs and membership schemes and all kinds of stuff for our customers, which they find very useful. You've got one just like this. So here it is, Logo Soup. Lots of brands that you'll have heard of. We're working with probably 9 of the top 10 theme park operators in the world. We're working with 180 ski resorts, 1,000 venues. If you buy a ticket for ice hockey in Canada, it's us. We're the biggest seller of theatre tickets in Mexico, and on it goes. Cheerfully, David Toms, who's probably the best technology analyst in London, works for Numis, did some work around this space for us, well, not for us, for himself, because he flogs it, at the end of last year. And he reckoned that just the ticketing market alone, in terms of our ability to charge fees to sell tickets, and we charge, I don't know, anywhere between 0.75 and 2% of the value of what we're selling. So it's that kind of range. We're not talking like a rounding error here. We're talking a meaningful chunk. At 50 cents a ticket, that market's worth $2.5 billion to providers like me. So we're not even touching the sides in terms of the side. I've got 7 minutes left, it turns out. So, moving on, the model. So what do we want to try and do? We want to generate long-term, repeatable, importantly, repeatable, transactional, and growing revenue streams, frankly, because that seems like a good way to do business. So when we sign up a new piece of business, so I came from a service business. We signed up a contract with Her Majesty to run an airfield. She sent me 10 million quid every month. It's not quite as good as that, but what we do is we have a framework which says if this venue is selling stuff using our systems, the money shows up. So unless something catastrophic happens across 1,000 venues, we have very, very good foresight of a big chunk of our revenues going forward. And we're also being greatly assisted by the move to mobile. So as of the results we've just announced, we've announced, I think, our mobile sales last year were up 470%. So that's people preparing to transact on mobile, so buying stuff from their handheld. Interestingly, of all the visits to all of our customers' websites, and we're talking hundreds of millions of visits here, more than 50% now start on a mobile device. And that's really, really good news if you're an e-commerce ticket vendor, because it means that people are buying in that environment, and I get to take my little slice. And so I have a growing business in spite of myself, simply because people are moving toward mobile. And we focused on making it easy. So this idea that we give it away, well, we do. We give it away. We say you can have it. And if there's CapEx involved in installing it or doing something, I'll pay that too. That's fine. And all we'll do is we'll recoup that cash from the money that we're going to make together. So if it's going to cost £500,000 quid to install something, don't worry about it. You don't have to go and find the CapEx line. Don't fight with your boss. I'll pay the £500,000 quid, and we'll just get it back from whatever we're going to do together. Actually, that was one of the first things we changed commercially when I turned up. Previous to that, we'd been charging the £500,000 quid, and guess what? It was bloody hard work. As soon as you say you can have it and we'll get it back over 3 or 4 years, it's a barrier reduced, that's for sure. The key thing, though, and the way that I hope that our market and our customers think about us is we're all about adding value. We're all about adding revenue to their businesses. If by engaging with us, we're not making you more money than you were making before, we have completely failed. So it's incredibly important that we continue to invest in having the very, very, very best technology we can. And of our 260 odd people, certainly half, probably more, are technically bent. I've got 25-year-olds earning $100,000 a year. It breaks my heart. But if you want to get the very, very best young kids who are doing the very, very best stuff and producing beautiful, beautiful shops where people spend loads of money and we get to share in that, remember, that's what you've got to do. So that's what we do. What else have we got here? You can get all of that, can't you? Pretty much. So I'm just in danger of running out of time. So in terms of, where are we? So 85-ish% of our business is transactional, directly related as a profit share or a revenue share with our customer. 85% of all of our revenues. About 5 or 6% are ongoing support revenues. So part of the Seriousware model, the point of sale business we bought, that had a license sale and residual support, kind of typical, kind of old school software licensing model. And they have about 5 or 6 million of recurring support every year that just turns up, which leaves us just about 9%-ish, which is kind of one-off bits of work which we'll do for customers through the year. But broadly, the vast majority of our business is repeatable, and we think it's going to show up next year as well. And it's over the long term. And glad, cheerfully, because we're quite good at doing it, either because we have IP, which means that no one else can do it, or because we're just good at doing it, we tend not to lose customers, which is good news. And certainly we haven't lost a big ticketing customer, certainly while I've been involved in it. We just renewed one of our biggest ones, a company called Cedar Fair. They're one of the biggest theme park groups in North America. So Knott's Berry Farm, some of you might know, in LA, and Cedar Point. So 25 million people turn up to their places every year. And we didn't even talk about price at renewal. We're making them so much more money by them selling more stuff that price wasn't the discussion, actually, amazingly. The chief executive of that group, after we installed, stood up and said, our online channel is up by 36%. That's a startling number in our world. And we replaced what they thought was a pretty good e-commerce system. It's up 36%. So in terms of my little fee in the bottom, it's a rounding error to them. They don't care. 36% is a big number if you're selling hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's long-term, it's repeatable, it's increasing because we've got customers flooding into mobile, up by 500% year on year in terms of volumes. We get very good forward visibility of what we're doing. And actually, the rump that we've got left, the one-off stuff, I think we can convert quite a lot of that to transactional. My end game plan, I think, is I'm going to give away the point of sale, and I'll bundle it with transactional e-commerce system sitting on top of that. And that allows me to, again, reduce barriers to people engaging with me. And makes me incredibly sticky. You used the word sticky a few times, and I agree with you. Sticky's good. You want people bound into you, either contractually, emotionally, because they build other systems that depend on your systems. Any sneaky little way you can to build dependence and stickiness. And we're all about that, I can tell you. So a 3-year transformation. I did this just the other day, and I was kind of really delighted when I thought about it. So this is just kind of a few stats from the last 3 years. So we've gone from no tickets to over 100 million. So that's the standout stat, I suppose. Our systems, and about, of those 100 million tickets we sell, about 50 million are sold from a SaaS cloud-based kind of product, and the balance are probably mostly Seriousware customers we're selling at the box office. These 50 million are the ones that we charge a transaction piece of. And of that 50 million, the total value of the tickets we sold for our customers last year was worth $44 per second. So every second of every minute of every hour of every day of 2014, we sold $44 worth of tickets. So we're important to a few people, broadly. Think about how many dollars worth of tickets we sold since I stood up. We've got customers in 23 countries. We don't have operations in 23 countries. Back to your point, bloody hell. No thanks. Doing business in 25 American states is hard enough, let alone many, many more. But clearly we have a cloud-based systems, and we can deliver tickets to pretty much anywhere we can provide the right language. We don't have to be there necessarily. And we've gone from 125, 130 odd locations to well over 1,000 now. And actually, part of the genesis for this kind of expansion was, how long have I got? Oh, I'm into question time. Part of the genesis for this was, yeah, don't worry about it, I'll come back to it. Numbers out today, headlines, lots of green arrows going upwards, but you would kind of expect that. But we've got a 5-year CAGR of about 30-something, high 20%, I think, on revenue, a bit more on EBIT. The acquisitions we've done have all been double digits earning accretive year one. To give that some context, we've bought lovely, lovely, lovely owner-managed businesses. We've done cash and stock deals, and they've all stayed because they've bought into our trip rather than cashed into private equity broadly. I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to go to here. This year, 2015, what's going on? Well, we're flying, frankly. Showware, our new business, we've announced 22 wins since we bought them in November, 22 new contracts for that business alone. There's been a bunch more, which we'll announce shortly. Seriousware, again, we've had a bunch of wins, which we will be talking about shortly. Our ticketing business is going ballistic. We've got more opportunity, sales pipeline opportunity. So if you think about the guests that go to our current ticketing customers, in the theme park for our passport product, if we convert the pipeline we have, and we are in proper conversations with these people, these are RFPs we're talking to them about physically today, we will considerably more than double the size of our passport business. And these are all engagements we're in right now. So the opportunity in that business is just scary big. There's some more stuff to buy maybe, but actually not too much more. I think we have most of what we need now as the baseline. All of the divisions of our business are growing very happily, organically and acquisitively. And 2015, I'm really looking forward to it. That's enough. How long have I got? I've got 9 minutes for questions.
Tom, you're clearly very confident.
Please wait for the microphone. Sorry. Oh, you got one. Sorry, I didn't see it.
You're clearly very confident about 2015.
Yep.
Can you explain why the brokers have reduced their forecasts?
I don't think either of them have.
No?
Well, that would be I've got my finance director here. Have they reduced their forecasts? Okay. In fact, I think both of them have put them up, actually.
Well, I think at EPS level, at earnings level, you're correct. A couple of assumptions have changed on the effective tax rate moving forward. The underlying earnings that we're going to have, will have increased.
So it's the tax rate.
It's tax rate.
Is the significant change.
So broadly, without wishing to bore everybody, EPS is post-tax, clearly. So in a UK domicile, so tax follows the IP. So our queuing business the IP lives in the UK, owned by the British entity, and we pay tax, and we have patent box advantage on top of that. So the tax on that is, into the teens on all the queuing revenue. However, the queuing revenue profitability is, much less than half of the profitability of the group now. So all the ticketing IP lives in the United States. So we're paying Uncle Sam, up to 40% corporation tax is what Uncle Sam charges you. Now you can move the IP about. You have to pay Uncle Sam a fee to get rid of it, to move it, and that's one of the strategies we're thinking about. And it depends on the rate of return of doing that clearly. So at EPS, forgive me, you're right. At earnings, actually they've both increased, I think.
What, if any, gaps are there in your technology platform? I think you said that you've pretty much done your acquisitions for the time being, but is there anything that you're currently looking for or you'd look to add to the technology suite that you're currently operating with?
Good question. I kiss a lot of frogs when it comes to the M&A stuff because I do it all myself. And so I've done 200 flights the last couple of years each year, going around the world meeting people, and because I think that's time really well spent. And if I could find a $200 million deal to go and do, I would do it in a heartbeat. And the trouble is I can't find anything that in our space which I think is any good, which I want to buy. And that's both the irritation for me and the opportunity, because of course I can be that. And we can grow that business. We can grow out, we're already substantially the biggest vendor of this type in the world. And, we've got a long way to grow, we believe. In terms of, maybe there are some little niche-y things, but is there anything of significant scale that I think I need to buy to complete the suite? I don't think so at the moment. Not that I'm aware of. The one thing in our theme park world is, around photography, perhaps, and, kind of recording the experience. But actually the fact that we've all got 6 megapixel cameras in our pockets, means that I'm unlikely to be spending, $14 to buy a 10 by 8 glossy of me cuddling up to Superman in a theme park somewhere. I'm just going to take the picture myself. So I think that world is kind of reorganizing itself. In terms of ticketing, no, I don't need to buy anything else. In terms of queuing, we're it already. In terms of mobile apps, we do 2 or 3 million a year. We're doing okay in that space. And that actually we don't really make much money on. That's mostly just to give somebody the opportunity to buy a ticket because they've got an app in their hand or to, buy queuing. So frustratingly, probably not at the moment. But then again, I'll meet somebody tomorrow and, we'll do a deal and I'll tell you about it. But we keep looking all the time.
Next question. Little guy here. Whilst the microphone comes around, you did skip through some of your financials.
I did.
Quickly, market cap, turnover, profits.
Sorry, mate. Market cap today, we're going to be at 140 million.
Kinda, sorta. 140 mil, something like that.
Turnover.
Turnover 71 million.
Profits.
And then we recorded adjusted profit because we're acquisitive. We're basically at 8.7 million.
Okay. Thanks very much.
I heard you speak a few years ago about when you were talking about bans within water parks.
Yeah.
You were talking about that being a payment method.
Yes.
I was just wondering what you were doing around the near-field communication.
Okay, well, NFC, beacons, RFID, all of that kind of technology we think is really interesting. Low power Bluetooth, there's all kinds of things going on. And in fact, we just launched, installing this week in Wet n Wild in Orlando, which is the world's biggest water park. We've got our brand new band, which we've just, first customer for it, which is really cool. Which can integrate with any other system. So it integrates with our SeriousWare point-of-sale platform for cashless payments, for example. It can be your hotel room key. It can be your queuing device. It can be a watch. It's basically, it's a chassis and a pointer, with a screen. So you can see a value or you can see information on it. We think it's really cool. We've got customers talking to us about, applications where they might need millions of these bands. And we think it's pretty unique in the world at the moment. So whether or not they use it as a queuing device at that point, I don't really care. They can just buy the bands. But that whole technology, so in a water park, you're in your swimmers and you don't want to have your iPhone, right? So a band becomes like a really good alternative to that. You don't want your smartwatch either because that goes, in the water slide, you're stuffed. You probably also don't want a smartphone on a cruise ship, for example, because lots of metal around and it doesn't work. If you're walking around a theme park, you probably want your iPhone because you want to take a photograph and you want to send it onto your Facebook. So there's horses for courses, but the band is cool.
Next question, anybody?
I haven't seen your results today, but I assume you didn't pay a dividend. Could you just address that question?
Yeah, I'd be delighted.
Sorry, that's 2 questions. The other one is about, are you going to convert into US dollars or are you going to keep us a sterling company?
We have converted to US dollars. We thought that was the right thing to do, and so did our auditors. So we have done, and the results that you'll see out today are in US dollar, which is frankly, given what's happened over the last couple of months, has been jolly good news. We have some debt. We have a facility for $30 million US dollars. The debt is in dollar and is being paid back in dollars by our business, which generates dollars. And again, I'm jolly pleased that we decided to do that. As it is, as of the results, we were at less than half of that facility being used, so about 1 times EBIT, something like that, which I'm very comfortable with a debt level of 1 times EBIT. I wouldn't want it to be much more. Second question, and I've completely forgotten what the other question was. Dividend. We don't pay one. I'm sorry. I would love to pay a dividend. I own 4% of this business. I'd be delighted to pay a dividend, and so would most of my shareholders. But I think, on balance, right now, we've got a better use for the cash. And a better use for the cash is continuing to grow our business as hard and as fast as we can. Last year, we spent $9 million on research and development. And, keeping ahead of the wave and pulling the whole industry with us and being the place that people come for the cool stuff, which is where we are right now, costs a bunch of money. So acquisitions cost more. We'll have paid off the debt, all of our debts, based on current run rate within 18 months, a couple of years, something like that, a bit less. And assuming we haven't done something else in the interim, which I think is unlikely, then maybe we'll start paying a dividend. But for now, we think there's a better use for our shareholders' capital. And so we're quite clear about that, is that right now we're not going to, but bring on the day that we can, because we're all pretty interested in that.
And Rowan's got a final question.
Yeah.
Just one quick one, and forgive me if I've misunderstood something.
Okay.
You mentioned in the development of the company, I think, that before someone would have a physical device when they went to the
For the
theme
queuing
park or
products.
the attraction,
Yep.
and then as mobile technology has developed and we all have iPhones,
Yep.
are those devices any longer used? Do you still? Is there a way you can re-engineer them or do something with them, or are there still customers or attractions that use them?
Okay, good question. And there's lots of ways I can answer it. So we built a device called a Qbot, which is basically a theme park-friendly, idiot-proof wireless screen, which allows you to kind of engage with our queuing servers. It's really cool, and it works really nicely. It's installed in many, many parks right now. Clearly, we can do exactly that. Your smartphone is a wireless screen which can engage with servers, so it's exactly the same thing. However, there are some issues. The key issue is about Wi-Fi. So if you have 50,000 people in a theme park, just like you've got 50,000 people in Wembley, getting a mobile connection is next to blinking impossible. Same thing in a theme park. And also you've got big old roller coasters all over the place acting as Faraday cages and stopping signals. So you've got to have Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi-ing an area as big as a theme park is quite pricey. So actually what's happening is our customers are migrating at the pace that they're putting in Wi-Fi. So Legoland Windsor, Blackpool, Dreamland in the Gold Coast in Australia, crikey, a bunch of others have now got Wi-Fi, and they're doing QSmart alongside Qbot. And where the customer is given the choice, it's about 50-50, actually. We'll take the other thing. Can I do one very, very quick other thing which I want to talk about? We did some trials last year of some really cool technology, which we call Q100. It was trialled in Thorpe Park over about half a dozen weekends, maybe a bit more. And this is where the only way to get on the ride is to join a virtual queue. So effectively, you eliminate physical queues in a theme park. And Mike Vallis, bless him, who's the general manager at Thorpe, took a punt and said, well, he phoned us up and said, can you do it? And we said, we'll have a go. And we've done it, technically. We've solved it, which is a happy thing. And now we have to think about how we train the guest. And we inflicted this on guests. Tens of thousands of people were having to get out their smartphone out, get into a session and join a virtual queue to join the biggest rides in Thorpe Park over various bank holiday weekends last year. That's kind of life-changing in theme park world. The biggest single reason that people don't go to theme parks is they don't want to stand in lines. And so if we can crack that nut, and the nut is in two parts, it's a two-half nut. One half is the technology, where we've cracked it and we've got patents around it, which make it awkward for other people. And the other half is operationalizing it, bringing it to life for real for thousands and thousands and thousands of guests and training them. So we're going to do some more work on that this summer. But in terms of the next generation of queuing product, and thank you for reminding me, that's where we're heading with queuing, and that's really cool. No one else is even contemplating doing that in the world right now. I think I better shut up.
Tom, thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you.